Alright, for our next step, we now have created our little eraser. What you're going to want to do before you carve and we work on that part, is you're going to want to refine your design. So I'm going to add some final details by adding in some little lines here for the inside of this, and add a little circle on the inside. And I'm actually going to add some cross-hatching lines. Now what happens with linoleum cuts and when you do relief prints is anything that's cut away will be the white of the paper, right? So I'm going to add cross-hatching, like drawing lines, but I'm going to have them stop just shy of this line. I don't want them to meet that line. So I'm going to add these as little like shading marks because they'll look really cool. And I'm going to cut those out with a pretty small gouge. Now I have these little texture lines, and then I have these. So I'm going to refine those a bit just so it's easier for me to see what I'm cutting. And I'm actually going to add some little ones in between to give it more texture in my print. And this will all show up really well. So I have a little bit more texture inside there. All right, so now we're going to use one of these tools. So these are relief cutting handles. Now these are in the Printmaking Center, which is backed by the ceramics materials. And I organized them into bins. So there are 4 of these in each of the drawers on the sides. Inside there's a little metal piece that allows you to seat these different gouges. The gouges have a number on the back of it. So this is a number 1. So it's the smallest that we have for cutting small lines. And then they go up to a number 5, and there's some others. This is a number 3 for some of the bigger areas. So I'm going to actually start with some of my smaller lines just to be careful. So I unscrew this just a bit. Don't unscrew it too far because we can lose some of those parts. And this thing just slides down in there. And then I can tighten it. Don't over tighten. Whenever you over tighten things, it breaks things. I'm going to tighten it so that's on there nicely. Now if you slip and hit your hand, you are going to cut yourself. So be really careful. And I have Band-Aids, of course, just in case. But now to cut these, I'm of course now going to cut away from myself. So now I'm going to start pushing with this gouge, and I'm holding it with my fingers like this, pushing away from myself. So I'm going to push in just a bit and start sliding across like that, and it'll start peeling things away. Now that's a really teeny line, so that may fill in with ink, so I'm probably going to want to go a little deeper than that. So I'm going to push a little bit harder. If I push too hard, it's not going to work very well. It's going to make it kind of messy and not work. So there we go. That's a pretty good line. Then I'm going to go to my next line, and I'll continue to cut my way around, incising these lines to create my pattern. And I actually just noticed I want to change it a little bit, so feel free to change your idea as you go, but you want to use good craftsmanship here and move along. So now I'm going to cut some of these littler lines. So I'm actually going to make this kind of like quick motion here. Slice. Slice. And I want to make some of these, the in-between long lines, thicker, so I may come back and make those a little bit deeper. I'm just noticing that they're a little bit thin. I want these ones to be thin so they show up that way for these kind of like hatching lines. I'll give some texture. And this one I'm going to go a little deeper and make it a little fatter. I might grab a 2 even and make that a little bit fatter a little bit later. I'm just taking my time making that. Now I can kind of see how that's working. Now I'm going to work my way around the megaphone like so, and start cutting away my design. And notice how I am not cutting toward my hand at any point. So I really don't want to cut myself. That would be a bummer. It would hurt. Okay, so you'll work your way around your entire object, cutting those away. Now I'm going to end up cutting a lot more out of this background because I remember that anything that's going to be, I want some good contrast. So you'll see as I progress. All right, so now I've cut away a lot of the design, and I'm going to switch to a larger gouge. So I have a 3 right here. I don't know if I'll need anything much smaller or much bigger than that for how small this relief block will be. But now I'm actually going to, I kind of want to leave those little hatch marks that are on there as raised little bits to give it contrast. So I'm going to cut away in between each of these. We'll see how this works. And create some vertical lines that'll be in contrast to these kind of horizontal lines as well to make it more interesting looking. Nothing too intense, but I want to make it visually interesting, so just cutting those away. It's a big cut. Kind of cutting around. I'm going to have to sort of skip my way around a little bit as I go. That chunk up, skip over a bit. Hopefully that adds some cool texture. I'm going to cut a couple little chunks out here. Oh, I just cut toward myself. That was dangerous. Alright, cut a little chunk out there. And these are going to be really faint, so I'm going to go back in here and cut some bigger chunks out just to give it some more contrast inside these when I end up printing. And I can always, when I show you how to print, I can always come back and cut deeper. That's one beauty of this as well. So I have my starting block ready. Our next step is going to be to ink this thing and print. So that'll be in the next video.